History often remembers victories as sudden moments, a single battle, a final surrender, a clear turning point. But nations are rarely broken or saved in one day. Their fate is shaped slowly through generations of stubborn resistance, painful retreats, and decisions made under impossible pressure. Serbia's struggle against the Ottoman Empire was not a brief clash between unequal powers. It was a centuries-long test of endurance, identity, and survival, a story of a people who refused to disappear, even when history itself seemed to move against them. For centuries, a small nation clung fiercely to its mountains, rivers, and stone fortresses while facing an empire whose borders stretched from the deserts of Arabia to the heart of Central Europe. By every measure, Serbia should have fallen quickly. The Ottomans commanded immense armies, deep resources, and long experience in conquering kings and kingdoms alike. Each new uprising seemed doomed before the first sword was drawn. And yet, again and again, Serbian leaders and warriors rose to fight. They launched raids, rebellions, and full-scale battles, relying not on numbers, but on intimate knowledge of the land, disciplined tactics, and an unyielding national spirit. Over time, these efforts slowly chipped away at an empire that never expected such relentless resistance. Today, most people remember only Serbia's eventual liberation, but the true story lies in centuries of hardship, strategy, and sacrifice, the story of a nation that refused to be erased by conquest. In the mid-14th century, the Balkan Peninsula was a fragile mosaic of rival states, shifting alliances and uneasy truces. Serbia, at this moment, was rising fast under the rule of Emperor Stefan Dušan, who reigned from 1331 to 1355. Dušan did not settle for the title of king. He crowned himself emperor and autocrat of the Serbs, Greeks, Bulgarians, and Albanians, signaling ambitions far beyond his borders. Under his leadership, Serbia expanded at a breathtaking pace. By the middle of the century, Dušan's realm stretched across Thessaly, Epirus, Macedonia, Albania, and Montenegro, reached deep into eastern Bosnia, and extended north to the Danube. Contemporary accounts and later reconstructions suggest that Serbia had become the dominant power in the Balkans, rivaling even the fading Byzantine Empire. But Dušan's legacy was more than territorial conquest. He sought to reshape Serbia into a true imperial state. He raised the Serbian church from archbishopric to patriarchate, securing spiritual authority to support his rule. More importantly, he introduced a formal legal system known as Dušan's Code, first issued in 1349 and revised in 1354. Drawing heavily from Byzantine law while preserving Serbian custom, it laid the foundation for centralized administration, a rare achievement in a region still governed largely by personal loyalty and feudal custom. By the time of Dušan's death in 1355, Serbia stood at its peak, vast, powerful, organized, and legitimized both legally and religiously. Yet beneath this strength lay dangerous fault lines. The first weakness was structural. Many newly conquered territories, especially former Byzantine lands such as Thessaly, Epirus, Albania, and Macedonia, were bound more by loyalty to Dušan himself than by any stable administrative system. Older Serbian regions like Raška, Zeta, and the Morava Valley retained traditional feudal practices, creating tension between the empire's core and its periphery. Although Dušan's code offered unity on paper, its real influence remained strongest in the original Serbian lands. The second weakness proved fatal. Dušan left no capable heir. His son, Stefan Uroš V, would later be remembered as Uroš the Weak. In the years following Dušan's death, powerful regional nobles, the Velikasi, transformed their domains into near-independent states. The emperor's authority survived in name only, while Serbia's political unity shattered. With it went the ability to coordinate armies or respond decisively to external threats. And as the Serbian elite fractured into rival factions, a new danger quietly crossed into Europe. In 1354, Ottoman forces seized Gallipoli, establishing their first permanent foothold on European soil. Under Orhan and later Murad I, the Ottomans advanced steadily into the Balkans, exploiting local rivalries and political chaos. By around 1360, Adrianople, modern Edirne, fell into their hands and became the Ottoman capital in Europe. From there, expansion accelerated. Throughout the 1360s, Ottoman armies pushed into Thrace and Macedonia, pressing into vulnerable Serbian lands. The timing could not have been worse. The Balkan states were politically divided, militarily weakened, and strategically uncoordinated. The region had become a powder keg, waiting for a single spark. That spark ignited on September 26th at the Battle of Maritsa. A coalition of southern Serbian lords, led by King Vukašin Mrnjavčević and his brother Jovan Ugljiša, marched to confront the Ottomans near the Maritsa River in what is now northern Greece. Estimates place their army somewhere between 50,000 and 70,000 men. Confident in their numbers, they underestimated their enemy. Ottoman commanders, including Lala Şahin Pasha, launched a devastating night assault. Campfires became beacons of chaos. Soldiers awoke to screams, steel, and fire. In the confusion, the Serbian command collapsed. Both Vukašin and Ugljiša were killed, and southern Serbia lost its capacity for organized resistance. Maritsa was more than a battlefield defeat. It marked the effective end of a united Serbian state. Surviving nobles either submitted, fled, or accepted Ottoman vassalage. Within months, Emperor Uros died, childless and powerless, bringing the old dynasty to an end. What remained was a fractured landscape of minor principalities, Moravian Serbia, scattered despotates, and isolated lords, none strong enough to stop the Ottomans alone. Meanwhile, Ottoman control expanded not just through conquest, but through a calculated system of tribute, vassalage, and gradual absorption. By the 1380s, the last serious Serbian power was Moravian Serbia under Prince Lazar Hrebljanović. Lazar lacked Dušan's imperial strength, but compensated with political skill. He forged alliances through marriage and diplomacy, reaching toward Bosnia and Hungary. Still, Ottoman pressure mounted. In 1386, Niš fell, bringing the frontier dangerously close. Knowing that confrontation could no longer be avoided, Lazar gathered his forces at Kosovo Palch. His army, estimated between 12,000 and 30,000 including allies, relied heavily on armored cavalry, noble knights trained to smash enemy lines through sheer force. Supporting them were archers and lightly armed infantry, often peasants with basic weapons. Across the field stood Sultan Murad I with a more professional and adaptable force. His army, possibly numbering up to 30,000 or more, included elite janissaries, heavy cavalry sipahi, and flexible light troops skilled in maneuver and harassment. This was not a feudal host, it was an imperial war machine. The Ottomans prepared the battlefield carefully, using obstacles, ranged fire, and layered formations to neutralize Serbian charges. When the battle began, arrows darkened the sky. For a fleeting moment, Serbian knights broke through one wing of the Ottoman line, hinting at victory. But momentum faded, slowed by terrain and armor. Serbian forces were surrounded and worn down. Leadership collapsed. Prince Lazar fell. Though legends speak of Miloš Obrenović striking down Murad, historians find no solid contemporary proof. What remains certain is this: Ottoman discipline, coordination, and tactical depth prevailed. Serbia's reliance on direct assault, without reserves or flexibility, sealed its fate. The Serbian army was shattered, but the Serbian story was far from over. Kosovo in 1389 became a defining moment for Serbia, not because it ended the struggle, but because it revealed its limits. Serbia's fractured feudal system simply could not replace fallen warriors or raise new armies with speed. Over the following decades, the Ottomans advanced methodically, absorbing Serbian lands one by one while exploiting rivalries among local lords. What had once been a powerful medieval state slowly dissolved into scattered principalities, each too weak to stand alone against an expanding empire. Yet while Serbia declined politically, Kosovo gained a different kind of power. In cultural memory, the battlefield became sacred ground. Tales of Prince Lazar's chosen sacrifice, the legendary bravery of Miloš Obrenović, and the valor of Serbian knights passed into epic poetry, songs, and folklore. A military defeat was transformed into a symbol of identity, a story of resistance, honor, and an unbroken spirit that refused to bow, even in loss. Nearly 60 years later, the Second Battle of Kosovo in October 1448 sealed the fate of much of the region. Fought between October 17th and 20th on the same field heavy with history, it once again pitted the Ottomans against a Christian coalition. This time, Sultan Murad's successors commanded a force of roughly 50,000 to 60,000 professional soldiers operating under a disciplined chain of command. Facing them was a coalition led by Hungary and Wallachia, supported by various vassals, perhaps 31,000 to 47,000 men in total, including around 7,000 cavalry and tens of thousands of infantry. Despite closer numbers, the outcome was never truly balanced. The Ottomans fought as a unified force, executing well-tested battlefield tactics, waves of coordinated infantry, disciplined archers, relentless harassment from light cavalry, and decisive charges by the Sipahi. Their opponents, drawn largely from feudal levies and regional militias, lacked a standing army, secure logistics, or battlefield cohesion. Courage alone could not compensate. The result was a crushing Ottoman victory. Historians widely agree that Kosovo in 1448 marked the end of serious Western attempts to roll back Ottoman power in the Balkans. What followed reshaped the region completely. The Ottomans didn't merely conquer, they reorganized. Feudal rule gave way to a centralized system built around sanjaks and administrative districts directly accountable to Istanbul. After the final Serbian stronghold fell in 1459, the Sanjak of Smederevo was established to govern most of Serbia. Ottoman land registers, the defters, reveal striking detail. By 1476, Smederevo recorded roughly 7,600 Muslim households alongside more than 15,000 Serbian peasant households. To stabilize control, the Ottomans resettled populations from Bosnia, Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Old Vlach regions into lands depopulated by war and disease. Through taxation, conscription, and land redistribution, the empire replaced fragmented feudal authority with a system designed for continuity. The Timar system granted land to cavalrymen in exchange for service, ensuring a steady supply of Sipahi forces, while conscription and the Devshirm provided disciplined infantry. Revenue flowed to the state, not to rival local elites. Ottoman rule, however, came at a heavy social cost. Orthodox Serbs endured high taxes, forced labor, and conscription, prompting waves of unrest and migration. One of the most dramatic moments came in 1690, when Patriarch Arsnij III Karađorđe led what would become known as the Great Serb Migration. An estimated 30,000 to 40,000 people fled Ottoman lands along the Danube and Sava into Habsburg territory, seeking refuge from oppression. Southern regions, such as Kosovo and parts of central Serbia, lost population, while new groups were settled in their place, permanently altering the demographic and religious landscape. Seen together, the Second Battle of Kosovo in 1448, the fall of Constantinople in 1453, and the capture of Smederevo in 1459 were not isolated disasters. They formed a cascading sequence. Ottoman military superiority, centralized government, and deliberate population policies reshaped the Balkans for centuries. Fragmented feudal states like Serbia, already weakened from within, simply could not survive in this new geopolitical reality. Yet even under foreign rule, Serbian identity endured. The Orthodox Church became a guardian of memory. Epic poetry preserved the names of fallen heroes. Stories of past kingdoms, sacrifice, and defiance lived on, quietly reinforcing a collective consciousness that outlasted Ottoman political control. By the early 19th century, that buried tension erupted. The Pashalik of Belgrade had fallen under the control of rebellious janissaries known as the Dahij. These men ruled through terror rather than law, extorting peasants, enforcing forced labor, looting villages, and murdering without restraint. Fear dominated daily life. The breaking point came in January 1804 with the slaughter of Venezis. The Dahij executed dozens of Serbian community leaders, village heads, elders, and clergy. At least 70 were beheaded, their severed heads displayed publicly as a warning. The message was clear: submission or death. Instead, outrage spread. On February 14, 1804, Serbian leaders gathered in the village of Orisac near Arandelovac. There, they chose Đorđe Petrović, better known as Karađorđe, as their commander. This moment marked the beginning of the First Serbian Uprising. At its outset, roughly 30,000 fighters joined the revolt: peasants, armed villagers, hajduks, and men driven from their homes by fear and injustice. For the first time in centuries, freedom no longer lived only in legend. Early victories followed. At the Battle of Rudnik in March 1804, Karađorđe's forces captured the vital mining center, securing Šumadija and proving the uprising could succeed. Between 1805 and 1806, rebellion spread across central Serbia. Janissary authority collapsed town by town. Checkpoints fell. Improvised rebel forces proved capable of organization, coordination, and sustained resistance. In 1806 came a moment that reshaped history. Belgrade fell to the rebels. For the first time in generations, Serbs regained control of their capital. A proto-state emerged: a governing council, local courts, land administration, and restored peasant rights. Historians often describe this as a Balkan-style revolution, blending armed revolt with deep social reform. The success, however, was fragile. By 1812, 1813, international circumstances shifted. Russian support vanished after the Russo-Turkish War ended. The Ottomans struck back. Belgrade fell once more. Karađorđe fled into exile. Still, the meaning of the uprising could not be erased. For the first time since the medieval era, Serbs had acted as a unified nation, openly demanding justice, autonomy, and self-rule. Karađorđe, once an ordinary man, became a lasting symbol of resistance, proof that even centuries of domination could not extinguish the will to be free. And after the bloodshed of 1813, when many believed the dream had died once again, Serbia's struggle was far from over. Just 2 years later, in April 1815, Serbia found a new kind of leader. Miloš Obrenović, once a commander under Karađorđe, stepped forward. Unlike his predecessor's fiery, uncompromising approach, Miloš was calculated and patient. Where the first uprising had burned bright and fast, Miloš planned for endurance. He launched what would become known as the Second Serbian Uprising. This time, the rebels moved with precision. Ottoman garrisons across northern Serbia were targeted swiftly and deliberately. Within months, Ottoman troops had been forced out of most major towns, restoring Serbian control over lands that had lived under foreign authority for centuries. But this conflict was not fought by weapons alone. Miloš understood diplomacy as well as force. The Ottoman Porte, exhausted by recent wars and cautious of provoking Russian involvement after the chaos of the Napoleonic era, chose compromise over escalation. The concessions granted were extraordinary for the time. Serbs retained the right to bear arms, formed a national assembly, and gained broad local autonomy. Officially, Serbia remained an Ottoman vassal, with a governor still installed in Belgrade. In reality, Miloš had carved out a semi-independent state. Serbia now possessed its own leadership, institutions, and, perhaps most importantly, a growing sense of sovereignty. Miloš soon established the Obrenović dynasty, declaring the principality hereditary. Under his rule, Serbia began its slow transition from survival to statehood. In 1830, the Sultan issued the Hat-i Sharif, formally recognizing Serbian autonomy. The Serbian Orthodox Church gained independence from Constantinople, reinforcing cultural and religious self-rule alongside political freedom. Belgrade, once a city repeatedly fought over, became the permanent capital, evolving from a battered frontier town into the center of a rising principality. This was an era of reconstruction. Roads were built to link towns and encourage trade. Schools opened, spreading literacy and national awareness. A standing military was organized, no longer just a rebel force, but a tool of state authority. Progress was uneven. Serbia remained largely rural, economically fragile, and marked by the scars of centuries of domination. But the direction was clear. As political stability grew, a national culture began to take shape. This wasn't nationalism as spectacle, but as foundation building. Clerics, merchants, and scholars formed the beginnings of a Serbian middle class, shaping literature, ideas, and political thought in ways impossible under Ottoman rule. At the heart of this cultural awakening stood Vuk Karadžić, a linguist and reformer. He reshaped the Serbian alphabet itself. More than that, he traveled from village to village collecting folk songs, epic poems, and oral histories, many centered on Kosovo and medieval heroes. Through his work, centuries of memory were transformed into a shared national story, binding past sacrifice to present identity. Politics soon followed culture. In 1844, Ilija Garrisonin, Serbia's interior minister, drafted the Nasrtanij, a strategic vision for uniting all Serbian inhabited lands. It was blunt and ambitious. Ottoman-controlled regions, such as Bosnia and Kosovo, were framed not as distant provinces, but as unfinished chapters in Serbia's national story. These ideas would ripple through the century, shaping diplomacy, revolts, and nationalist movements. Yet Serbia's ambitions unfolded in a dangerous neighborhood. To the north and west, the Habsburg Empire watched closely, prepared to intervene if Serbian nationalism went too far. To the east, Russia posed as protector of Orthodox Slavs, a powerful ally, but not a dependable one. During the Crimean War of 1853-56, Russian support evaporated, reminding Serbian leaders that survival depended on balance and restraint. Serbia learned to navigate carefully. Diplomacy, reform, and selective confrontation became tools in a high-stakes geopolitical chess match, with empires ready to overturn the board. By the mid-1870s, the Balkans were again on edge. In 1875, a peasant revolt erupted in Ottoman-controlled Bosnia and Herzegovina, driven by resentment toward entrenched Muslim landowners. Serbia and Montenegro saw opportunity. Framing the rebellion as a moral defense of Slavic Christians, both declared war on the Ottoman Empire in 1876. The early stages were brutal. Serbian forces struggled against better-equipped Ottoman troops and suffered setbacks. Still, they endured. Then came a turning point. Russia entered the war, driven by pan-Slavic ideology and outrage over reported atrocities. Russian armies swept through Bulgaria and advanced toward Constantinople itself. This intervention changed everything. Without Russian pressure, Serbian independence might have remained a distant hope. In March 1878, the preliminary Treaty of San Stefano promised sweeping changes, recognizing Serbian independence and reshaping the Balkans. But Europe pushed back. Britain and Austria-Hungary feared a powerful Slavic bloc under Russian influence. The result was the Congress of Berlin in July 1878. On July 13th, the Treaty of Berlin was signed. Serbia was officially independent, no longer an Ottoman vassal. Its territory expanded. Montenegro gained land as well, while Austria-Hungary occupied Bosnia, limiting Serbian expansion but not its freedom. After nearly 5 centuries of Ottoman dominance, the Balkans had shifted irreversibly. Across Serbia, celebrations erupted. Church bells rang. Public gatherings filled towns and villages. Independence was no longer a dream recited in epic verse. It was law. King Milan I, crowned in 1882, now faced the daunting task of shaping a modern state from a largely rural society. Political freedom opened the door to institutions, infrastructure, education, and a national army capable of defending hard-won borders. It is a story where swords and songs, rebellion and diplomacy, memory and strategy intertwine. The story of a small nation that survived empire after empire and secured its place in history against overwhelming odds.